Sunday I spoke a little bit about the body of Christ and who was the body of Christ and what the body of Christ might look like. Today I want to take a little bit more look at that. This is Mission Alive. I'm Roger from MSC Mission Office. I've spoken before about my time in a place called Rigo. I lived at a place called Borragona when I was in Papua New Guinea. We had one of our outstations right up the river, quite a long way up the river, at a little place called Sirumu. If you walked up alongside the river, it was about an all-day walk. Often you couldn't take a dinghy up because if the water was a bit low you couldn't get the dinghy up. But on those occasions it was good fun coming back down on a raft made by the village people. One time I was right up there at the river, the little village, a little bush church, pretty rough, and the people up there were what we used to call pretty bushy lot. They were, they were pretty bushy. And we had a school there, we were trying to get some of them educated. In that village was a man who had leprosy. And I think he was pretty far gone. And he had fingers half gone, toes, sores all over his face. He was pretty much a mess. I don't know what the health people were doing about it. And he didn't smell very good. That was the way it is. And during Mass we got to the sign of peace, and he was sitting over there on the end of the seat on his own, and there was a big space between him and the next person. And all of these people were his relatives and his family, but they weren't going anywhere near him because it was pretty smelly. Anyway, I shook hands with the other people at the sign of peace, and I went over and I shook hands with him. It took quite an effort for me to do it, and I must admit I washed my hands thoroughly afterwards, and I kept checking to see if there was anything. I reflected on that afterwards, and I reflect now. He was part of the body of Christ. He was part of me, part of us. And it was, I think he may have died not too long after that. And I suppose I'm not saying that I was very brave or I was right out on the edges of society and doing many great things, but I shook his hand, and I was glad I did. So he was part of the body of Christ. He was part of us. And if we say the body of Christ, that's us. We, the church, we are the body of Christ. So as I said on Sunday, if you want to see the body of Christ, you want to see the face of Christ, have a look around you when you go to church. Have a look at your own family. We are all the body of Christ. Now those people up the river there, they were pretty bushy, and there'd be a lot of other stories I could tell from them. One of them was a young fella, and he was a pretty hard-headed young fella, and he didn't learn very much at school, but anyway, we made him a prayer leader, and he used to come down occasionally for meetings and for training and whatnot, and he was he'd take messages backwards and forwards. And his father had been the big man up there, the chief, and his father had been the one who had initiated the school to go up there. And then one day he came down and we said, his father's name was Moses, he was Matthew. He said, "How's Moses?" He said, "Father, he's okay, but it's a bit strange. It seems I'm growing up and my father is growing down." That was the way he expressed it. He felt he was becoming a young man, and as often with older people, they seem to shrink. So he was growing up and his father was growing down. And that was part of the process, that he was sort of becoming an adult and he was taking the position of his father. And I really can't remember whether we got too many kids through the school and whether they got on to high school or what from there, but they were pretty remote right up the river. And a little sideline coming down the river on the raft, they would often get banana trunks or some other pieces of wood, and they'd just tie them together with bush vines, and we'd float down the river. And you had to be a bit careful where you put your foot, because there are crocodiles in that river, particularly in that upper part. So the crocodiles were part of the fun of coming down the river. But anyway, that was part of the mission. We are all part of the body of Christ. We are all, in that sense, brothers and sisters. Thank you for being with us on Mission Alive.